Pac-Man, you're our only hope. You must retrieve the golden fruit. If Spooky isn't defeated, it's only a matter of time before Pac-Land is relegated to ruin.
Got it. I swear to defeat Spooky and restore peace to Pac-Land no matter what. It's my duty and I'm proud to see it through. Oh! Excuse me. Can't go adventuring hungry. How about a quick snack?
You might have heard over the years that the Pac is back, because he is, now more than ever with Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac. This remake of the 2002 classic takes the original platformer, a staple of my childhood if I may add, and amps it up with new levels, visuals, story additions, and music. Now I'm no stranger to the Pac-Man franchise, and with this now being our second game this year to celebrate the Puck's 45th anniversary, I was excited to see how this game would commemorate the milestone for arguably the most iconic character in all of gaming. Many years ago, an evil ghost, Spooky, wreaked havoc on the people of Pac-Land before being sealed by a Pac wizard with the power of magic golden fruit. Now, the four main ghosts of the Pac-Man games, Blinky, Inky, Pinky, and Clyde, sneak into the Pac Village at night and accidentally release Spooky, who enlists them to help terrorize Pac-Land. The next morning, Pac-Man wakes up and learns from the professor what has happened. It's now up to him to retrieve the golden fruit and save the people of Pac-Land from Spooky's terror. It's not exactly the most groundbreaking story, but as a huge fan of these characters, I really enjoyed it. It's elevated by all new visuals and the inclusion of full voice acting for just about every character. It's especially cool that the team brought back Martin Sherman as the voice of Pac-Man, as he voiced the character in the original Pac-Man World 3. This sort of everyman kind of voice really fits his role as our hero for this remake.
Hey, hold on. Where are you sticking that golden fruit? Clyde? It really ate it! I'm getting a frog in my throat.
Every character has a unique voice to match their personality, especially the ghosts, and it really brings this story to life as opposed to just me reading the captions myself. Seriously, the main four ghosts are a great source of comedic relief, and they're by far my favorite performances in the whole game. And the story of the original Pac-Man World 2 also felt a little strangely disconnected from the first game. Without going into too much detail, the Re-Pac version does a great job at creating a bit more of a cohesive narrative between the two games through an all-new post-game campaign. However, you absolutely can play World 2 Re-Pac without having played the first game. Whereas the first Pac-Man World Re-Pac game a few years ago played things pretty safe, being a near one-to-one recreation of the original game for the most part, Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac changes things up quite a bit. There are 5 worlds consisting of 3 levels and a boss fight for you to play through. The levels are connected by a world map, but you start in the Pac Village, which is a central hub which you can freely explore and unlock paths to new worlds as you complete them. Pac Village has a lot to offer, including gashapon machines for virtual figures you can decorate the village with, Klee's house where you can change your appearance with unlockable costumes, as well as pellets and fruits to collect to unlock more extras. With so many collectibles in the game, it's almost intimidating to try and collect them all, but definitely not impossible. There's a music player, classic arcade machines you can play retro Pac-Man games on, and it's surprisingly more dense than you'd expect from just a hub world. Pac-Man is also very fun to control in this one. Similar to the first Re-Pac, your main moves consist of jumping and kicking. You can perform a ground pound, known here as the butt bounce, and if you perform it at the apex of your jump, you get to bounce higher and deal more damage to enemies surrounding you. I really enjoyed moments in levels where a platform would be too high and I knew I needed a strong butt bounce to get up there. It's not like you have to overthink, and it's nice that the game rewards you for just stopping and examining your surroundings for a bit. There's also a sort of flutter jump when in the air by holding down the R button. You can easily remap the controls to your liking, but sometimes my muscle memory would fail me and I'd end up plummeting to my doom because I'd butt bounce where I meant to flutter. I couldn't really find a button where I'd be more comfortable to have this, but luckily it didn't take too long for me to adjust. That being said, this caused more mistakes than I'd like to admit. There's also the ability to throw pellets you collect at enemies, and a rev roll which acts sort of like a spin dash and allows you to roll up steep hills or across ramps. I gotta say, Pac-Man controls with a great level of precision, and many of my platforming mistakes I can admit were the fault of my own. A special shout out to the indicator that appears on the ground below you to tell you where you're gonna land, which is a more than welcome addition. Each stage has a set of 2 to 3 missions for you to complete, and completing them all will reward you with a costume. These missions can vary from collecting every fruit in a stage to defeating every enemy, or there's even one for completing a level without ever grabbing onto a ledge. And as for collectibles, each level has you collecting a certain number of fruits. Throughout the stage, you'll find chests that you can only open if you've collected all of a certain type of a fruit in that level. And you can usually find all the fruits without searching too hard, but you do have to get them all in one go. If you miss even one fruit, your count gets reset the next time you join the level. Just about every stage has a mission for collecting all the fruit, so this caused me to spend a little more time in every level just making sure I inspected every area to grab every fruit, and luckily, most of the time I was successful. Different from the first Pac-Man world, mazes are no longer found in stages as optional level objectives, but are instead unlocked through certain stages and can be accessed in the Pac Village. Compared to the first game, I actually really like this change, as the mazes can take up a little bit more time from a level than I would have liked, especially if I was just revisiting it for a few collectibles. For every level you complete, complete, the next time you hop in there you'll find a timer. This activates the time trial mode where you'll have to make your way through a stage as quickly as possible, and some of these clear times can feel brutal. Most levels have a mission that only requires you to get the bronze rank to clear it, but you will need to get the gold rank for a true 100% completion. I had a lot of fun finding new paths in every level and making the most of Pac's moveset to dash to the end as quickly as possible. And I'll be honest, if it weren't for the costume rewards you got for completing these missions, I probably wouldn't have bothered at all with time trials. The whole setup where you have to fully complete levels really reminded me of Crash Bandicoot 4, where some of the missions in these levels felt near impossible. But nevertheless, we made it happen, and I'm a more accomplished man for it. Going for the best times in these levels really adds to the game's overall replayability. As I touched on earlier, our time in Pac-Land isn't over once the credits roll. A brand new post-game to Re-Pac adds to the story with a few more extra challenging levels and remixed bosses. And yup, this means more missions to complete. It isn't an entirely new campaign, but it's just enough to scratch the itch of anybody who found the main game to be a bit straightforward or too simple. And again, no spoilers, but it's nice to have some closure on some of the events of the previous game here. You could totally ignore this post-game altogether and still have a fulfilling experience with World 2 Re-Pac, but I highly recommend anybody who finishes the game at least give this a shot. If at any point during your playthrough you find things to be too difficult, you can enable Fairy Mode. This makes you invincible and makes the game a bit easier, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't have to use it at all. The only downside is that for some of these missions, especially in time trials, it will add a penalty. Whereas normally in time trials you can earn clocks to remove your time, in Fairy Mode it adds to your timer, so keep it in mind if you're going for 100%. Every boss fight in the game has been totally reimagined compared to the original, and while they're not the most challenging, the game throws them at you in a way that feels downright unfair at times and kinda sours the overall experience. I didn't really struggle with any of them during the main story of the game, but I did during the post-game rematches. Here, the game's idea of a challenge is to just throw more and more attacks at you, rather than change up the gameplay a bit or allow you to devise some sort of strategy. Some of the hitboxes can feel wonky too, and some enemies can just straight up prevent you from attacking and just keep hurting you. If it's not enemies, it's more fireballs raining down or some other crazy attack. And the reason for the bosses being so frustrating is that throughout the entire game, in all of their encounters, there are no checkpoints at any point of their fights. This means that if you die, no matter what phase of the boss you're in, it's back to the beginning. It also doesn't help that during bosses you can rarely find more health on the screen, so you basically have to no-hit these. It makes it a little more questionable as to why every boss has a complete without dying optional mission objective, because it's basically required. All this really means is that when you die, if you want to complete this mission, you have to manually restart the level in the pause menu. If you don't reset the level, it will track your death and you can't fulfill the objective. I can't really describe it as anything other than annoying, because even though it is optional, some of these bosses are painful enough that I just like to avoid replaying them altogether. Luckily, that's just about my only negative experience with this game, but it was persistent enough that many moments felt infuriating. I think it could easily be solved if they kept the complete without dying as the mission, but added some checkpoints maybe whenever the boss phase changes. Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac runs at a mostly stable 1080p 60 frames per second in performance mode, but also offers a 4K 30 FPS quality mode option on Nintendo Switch 2. I played through the whole game on performance mode and still thought the visuals offered a clean looking upgrade compared to the original game. And I say mostly stable 60 FPS only because there were a few hiccups here and there, but never any significant pausing or moments where I would say the game was unplayable. As always, Pac-Man is this bright yellow character and allows him to be easily recognizable among the many colorful environments. And it was so cool to be able to point out levels I had remembered from my childhood, only now with a fresh coat of paint. That being said, I think a lot of people, myself included, do feel that the game loses some of its unique identity in favor of matching the visual aesthetics of the first Re-Pac game from 2022, but I think it's a fair sacrifice for the sake of continuity and revitalizing these games for a brand new audience. But man, do I miss when Pac-Man would play with the logo on the title screen. Many of the tracks from the original soundtrack have also been wonderfully remixed. Even though I only remember a handful of them from back in the day, they all have a sort of catchiness to them this time around, where I'd often find myself humming or whistling one of the melodies to the songs while going about my day. And one of the more obvious audio additions to this Re-Packed classic is full voice acting for most of our main cast of characters. The Pac himself is especially vocal, whether it's during a butt bounce, taking damage, or spouting one of two quips every time a fruit is collected. I was a bit nervous at first that it would grow annoying given how frequent and noticeable it felt. To my surprise, I somehow tuned it out throughout my playthrough.
Tasty, tasty, yummy, tasty, yummy, yummy.
And there are audio settings that would allow you to disable the voice entirely, but come on, he's just a guy having fun. Pac-Man World 2 Re-Pac is the definitive Pac-Man platformer and a great title for anybody trying to see what the pack is up to beyond the maze. Despite a few late game frustrations, it is overall an incredibly fun time. I love seeing Pac-Man revisit his 3D platformer days after all this time, even alongside some fresh new ideas. As a whole, it's an entertaining adventure through Pac-Land for any kind of gamer, no matter their age. Pac-Man is a character many of us grew up with, and it's great to see him stick around. As a huge fan of the series, I welcome any future Re-Pac games and even original titles with open arms. I easily recommend this game to anyone looking for a short, fun platforming adventure that's also a little bit of a challenge.